Hi guys, I'm just another guy named James, and today I'm going to be talking about the next set of West Coast Avengers comics. Now, all of these issues were released in 1986. Looks like in the winter of 1986, and honestly, they're pretty good. Like most of the issues of West Coast Avengers that I've talked about. They were written by Steve Englehart and drawn by Al Milgrom, and they're very okay. You can kind of see from the covers, Milgrom's art is interesting, to say the best. It can kind of just be a little stiff. And a little stiff, a little non-dynamic. And honestly, Steve Englehart's writing is about the same. But anyway, that's kind of a sidetrack. Before we get started on summarizing the video, I do want to kind of just briefly reintroduce all of our main characters. So we have Hawkeye, who most everybody knows who he is. Iron Man, again, most everybody knows who he is. We have Mockingbird. Mockingbird is Hawkeye's wife, and she's a former agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and now she's an Avenger. We have Tigra, we'll save her for later. We have Wonder Man, who was a former Avengers supervillain, who kind of joined the good guys and then died, and now he's back, and he's a movie star. And then we also have Hank Pym, who was the first Ant-Man, but he is retired from active hero work, but he still wants to help out and be with his friends on the Avengers. So he's kind of like Jarvis for the West Coast Avengers. And then we have Tigra. Tigra is kind of an interesting character because for her origin is basically that she was like a normal human being who became a superhero. She had this like special super suit made for her, the cat suit, and she used it for a little bit, but then in like some occult practice, she like had the soul and spirit of this like of what's called the Tigra, who's like an ancient like cat demon priestess or something. Very odd. But in the last set of West Coast Avengers issues, those very same cat people promised to help her get rid of her cat-like soul if she killed a West Coast villain who had been showing up at the time, Master Pandemonium, who is a guy like who sold his soul to Mephisto and ended up having it split into 5 parts and replaced by demons. It's kind of a wild story, honestly. It's very, very, very odd. But yeah, so those are kind of all of our characters. Before we hop in, I do want to say this issue right here takes place right in between the issues that we talked about last time and the issues that we're talking about today. But honestly, this issue is a really weird. West Coast Avengers issue 11 is a really weird piece of comic book history because it reads exactly like it's a setup for a limited series, but it's a setup for a limited series that never happened. So basically, Hawkeye and Mockingbird and Iron Man like go and investigate S.H.I.E.L.D. because after the helicarrier crash in the S.H.I.E.L.D. limited series, S.H.I.E.L.D's kind of in a bad spot. So Mockingbird goes to investigate because she used to be an agent. And after they talk to Nick Fury, the trio are attacked by three kind of random supervillains. They're attacked by Shockwave, like Rampart or something, and they're attacked by these three kind of no-name villains. One of them is from Power Man and Iron Fist, one of them is from Iron Man, and one of them is from Captain America. They're these three random villains. But this whole thing is a setup for a SHIELD limited series that was set to debut later that year. There was no SHIELD limited series in 1986 or 1987. There was Nick Fury versus SHIELD, which is a prestige format series that was released in 88, but that's entirely different, because in this story, SHIELD is trying to kill the Avengers. So it's this really odd piece, and I did some looking into it online and I couldn't find anything, but I just thought that was really fascinating. So, but anyway, that's a pretty substantial tangent, and it's not like they abandoned the limited series and just put the stuff that was going to be in it into the West Coast Avengers comic. This issue is never brought up again. It's never referenced again. It's just this weird little tangential one-shot issue that was supposed to set up something that never ended up happening. I just think it's a really interesting bit of kind of Marvel history, and one that I couldn't find much on when I looked into it. But again, that's a pretty substantial digression. So our story today is going to pick up in West Coast Avengers number 12, which opens on Wonder Man, Mockingbird, and Hawkeye all showing off their new costumes. And Hawkeye and Mockingbirds are pretty minor changes, but Wonder Man now has this absolutely terrible looking orange, green, and yellow suit. I don't know what the design team was cooking up on this one, but never let them cook again. Honestly, it's maybe one of the worst costumes in all of comic history. It's pretty bad, and they're showing off, but we soon focus up on Tigra, who is becoming more and more comfortable in her cat-like nature, laying in the sun and all that. And we also see that the team is being watched by a mysterious villain, who for now remains unknown. In the compound, Mockingbird asks Tigra about her whole two souls conundrum, but Tigra snaps on her, because Tigra knows that she is being expected to kill Master Pandemonium for the service of the cat people. So Tigra storms off and starts throwing herself at a bunch of the men on the team. Kind of odd, but they all kind of turn her down, except for Pym, because her and Pym are kind of an item. We're then introduced to three new threats, kind of just out of nowhere. We're introduced to Quantum, Hellfire, and technically we're reintroduced to Zax, who is a villain from the Hulk comic. We then see Tigra running through the woods until she misses a jump and is knocked out and taken and captured by the same mysterious villain who was watching her earlier. Zax, Quantum, and Half-Life then attack the city, so the Avengers deploy and they start fighting the villains. Hawkeye is able to single-handedly take down Zax, just like he did in his first appearance in The Incredible Hulk, and Wonder Man takes down Half-Life, and they work together to take down Quantum, but once everyone's kind of beaten into submission, the Avengers are attacked by Graviton, who has captured Tigra. Graviton then takes everybody up to a floating island where he begins to monologue, kind of yapping about how he's the Avengers' most dangerous foe, how he is all-powerful, yada yada yada. But all this showboating doesn't really impress his allies. So Graviton also makes some pretty overt moves towards Tigra, which honestly Tigra doesn't seem to mind too much in the moment due to her cat-like soul, just kind of wanting attention. And she is taken with the villains into Graviton's lair. We then cut away to Hank Pym, who is bouncing around occult stores doing some investigative work trying to get a lead on Master Pandemonium for Tigra, because the Avengers don't know that Tigra wants to kill Master Pandemonium. And Hank Pym's just trying to help Tigra out because him and Tigra are an item. But on the back on the island, and we see that one of the demons and we see that a demon from one of the occult stores has started following Pym around. Back on the island, Tigra comes to her senses and she attacks Graviton. But he puts her to the ground and he leaves her trapped in a gravity cage. Where after seriously considering like hooking up with Graviton and just like becoming the princess of gravity or whatever, she kind of comes to her senses and she decides that she's going to activate her amulet and turn back into her human self, into Greer Nelson. And at that same time, a guard happens to walk by, and he wants to spend some time with the attractive woman in the swimsuit. So he walks through the cage using a gravity box that all the guards have equipped. So Tigra knocks him out and steals his armor. She then goes and tells Half-Life and Quantum individually, completely separately, that each of them is going to be attacked by the other. And soon a fight breaks out, and while the two are fighting, Tigra goes and frees the Avengers, and soon Graviton steps in to help to separate Half-Life and Quantum, and soon Quantum and Half-Life both get ejected off of the island, kind of in opposite directions. And Graviton loses control, and he kind of just starts reversing gravity somehow. And the island goes soaring off into space. So Wonder Man and Iron Man grab everybody else on the team and all of the guards, and they fly off the island, leading Graviton to be trapped in space, and his whole army is locked up. A few days later, we see Hawkeye and Tiger doing some mock combat for training, but when Hawkeye starts winning, Tiger absolutely freaks out and she tries to kill him. So the rest of the team pulls her off and she resolves that she must go back to being a human permanently. She then walks off with Hank Pym, and she goes and chases, or she walks off and Hank Pym goes and chases her down. And he cheers her up for a little bit. But the moment is interrupted when the demon who followed Hank home last issue appears and attacks the Avengers with a legion of allies. We then cut away and we see that Master Pandemonium has decided to join the fray, as there is seemingly a lead to one of the missing pieces of his soul. And soon he appears at the compound, but as the Avengers fight the demons, the leader of the group just kind of captures Hank and Tiger and he takes them to hell. Master Pandemonium also teleports away, so the remaining Avengers seek help from a couple of old allies of theirs, Patsy Walker and Damon Hellstorm. So after the Avengers explain the scenario, Hellstorm and Hellcat suit up and the whole cabal goes to hell to rescue their friends. But before they arrive, we see that Greer Nelson and Pym are being literally just tortured by demons. And we also see that Greer is unable to transform into Tigra. But soon the rest of the team arrives and an all-out brawl starts before Master Pandemonium re-enters the fray, and soon all the heroes and Master Pandemonium are trapped on a boat and they're sent floating down the River of Death. The boat ends up floating into the land of the Cat People, somehow, and once they arrive, Pandemonium is able to feel a connection to one of his soul fragments. The whole crew is then taken to the King of the Cat People, and the Cat King ends up airing out Tigra's dirty little secret about attempting to murder Master Pandemonium, which none of the Avengers are on board with, and they low-key just start guilt-tripping her about it. But Hellstorm kind of comforts her, and soon the Cat King also reveals that he is in possession of part of Master Pandemonium's soul. Everyone is then taken into a coliseum, and Master Pandemonium is ripped apart by the cats, so Tiger can just finish the job super easy. But she can't do it, and the king takes away the Tiger soul as well as the powers. The Avengers are then put in jail, but Hellcat gives Tiger her costume, which has like powers or gadgets or something, and she breaks the rest of the team out, and they all start fighting the cats. Soon Tiger comes face to face with the main cat enforcer, Balcatar, and she takes him down before she breaks the jar containing the Tiger soul, and she becomes a truly balanced version of Tigra, getting all the Tigra abilities, but keeping her own mind. Master Pandemonium also gets back the piece of his soul, and with that, everyone kind of just goes home. Everyone kind of just they kind of just get out of hell somehow, and they go home. As an epilogue, we then see Tigra testing out her newfound balance, making sure she no longer fears water, all that good stuff. And soon, Tigra, Hellcat, and Hank Pym run into Tiger Shark. And they beat him pretty easily, but they learned that Tiger Shark was working with Whirlwind. So the trio plan to capture him. But before the action starts, Hank gets pretty deviously placed into the friend zone. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a pretty drastic hit to his already fragile mental state. But later that night, we see Tiger and Hellcat pursue Whirlwind up a building into Pym, and Whirlwind just starts laying into Pym. Tells him, "Hey, you're a failure. You failed as Ant-Man. You failed as Goliath. You failed as all of these things." And Hank's just like, that kind of sucks, man. And he gets super angry and he jumps at Whirlwind. And Whirlwind just dips, but Hellcat's able to jump in and save him, and Tigra takes down Whirlwind. And we see that Hank Pym's mental state is certainly deteriorating, but that's gonna be a thread that we'll wait to pick up until next time. So that's the story today, and honestly, it's passable. That's kind of what I'll say on it. It's weird, Steve Englehart's writing on a lot of these characters is not great. Englehart definitely doesn't know what to do with Iron Man. Just straight up, Iron Man will just be there on an adventure, and he'll kind of be a strong man to be there with Wonder Man. The first story was about, the first West Coast Avengers story of the series was all about Wonder Man. It was a retread of things we'd seen from Wonder Man in Avengers and the Wonder Man one-shots and the West Coast Avengers Limited series. But still, first story, all about Wonder Man, fine. I understand, we get a little break from him. All this stuff about Tigra is just, it's really odd. A lot of it reads really weird. A lot of the stuff with her kind of throwing herself at a lot of the guys, and with her thinking about sleeping with Graviton so that she can gain power. It's all very uncomfortable to read, honestly. It's just weirdly, it's just odd, honestly. I'm not a big fan of this whole little story. One cool thing about this era of comics in general, though, you get a lot of high idealism heroes. You get Hawkeye and Mockingbird and none of the Avengers are on board with killing, no matter the reason, honestly. And it's kind of nice. It's kind of a change to how it's a change to how they were perceived in the movies. Where in the movies, all of the Avengers just kill their main villains. It's kind of dumb also, but anyway, you get some high idealist heroism in these issues, and it's kind of refreshing, I guess. But honestly, these issues, I understand why you can find them, why they haunt dollar bins everywhere. They're not bad. They're certainly not bad. They're far from bad. But they're just not good either. Hank Pym is probably the most interesting character in the West Coast Avengers comic at this time, and he's kind of just a background character for a lot of these issues. Next time I talk about West Coast Avengers, there will be a lot more on Hank Pym, if my memory serves me correctly. But honestly, in these first, and so this kind of brings us to the end of the first year of West Coast Avengers. A lot of the stuff that happens in this comic very much so just feels like, let's throw these random concepts at the wall and see what happens. Al Milgram's art is very stiff. Steve Englehart's writing is even more stiff. Neither one is bad, though. Neither one's outright terrible. but I understand why these comics kind of haunt dollar bins. One thing I do like about the West Coast Avengers comic of this time, let's take a second peek at the credits. I talk a lot about writers and artists on this channel because they are the main driving forces in comic creation. But there is one other pretty important role, and that's the editor. And you can always... There's certain editors who just like leave really distinct fingerprints on comics. And I'm talking about this today because Mark Gruenwald edits the West Coast Avengers comic. And his fingerprints are all over this thing, man. Mark Gruenwald is a big Marvel Universe guy. He wrote... if the name sounds familiar, you probably know him because he wrote Captain America for a long, long time. And he did for something that we've talked about here on the channel, he did the Hawkeye Limited series. He's a Marvel Universe guy, though. He loves the idea of the Marvel Universe. He loves all these interconnected things. And you can really see that in the Mark Gruenwald editing style. There's all these random characters that just get brought back who really have no reason to be brought back. You know, what is Zax doing in a West Coast Avengers comic? Well, they needed a character with electricity-based powers. So, Zax, there we go. Mark Gruenwald just kind of pulled that out. You've got all these random villains that kind of just make a comeback. You've got characters like Hellcat and Hellstorm making a comeback. You got and that's just in today's video. In the past, we saw the the Texas Twister and the Phantom Rider and all these random characters that were in one issue of Hulk one time. Just make a reappearance, and it makes the comic feel really fun, and it makes it feel like a very Marvel Universe comic. I just wish that in its early days it had been written a little bit better, because I do think that every writer as of right now, I think every writer that follows Steve Englehart on this series does better. And I think most of the artists do better than Al Milgrom. Again, Milgram's not bad. He's very stiff, and he draws Iron Man with this freaking cone-shaped head most of the time. And he doesn't draw Iron Man very well in these issues at all. It kind of bothers me, because Iron Man's my favorite superhero. Naturally, that's why I talk about him a little bit in every video, in every West Coast Avengers video, even though so far he has literally done nothing of note. But yeah, honestly, I still, even with all that, I would still say that I recommend these comics. And honestly, these all haunt dollar bins. I mean, looking at this, I got this one for 70 cents, 50, a dollar, 50 cents, 50 cents. Like you can find almost every issue of West Coast Avengers in a dollar bin. And for that, I think it's one of the best comics for the price that you're likely to get it at. But honestly, that's really all I got on this little run of West Coast Avengers. I think the next story should be quite a bit better. But honestly, that's really all I've got for today. So, I'm just another guy named James. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.